Welcome to Living Well After 65, the podcast where we explore what it means to age with intention, resilience, and joy. We're joined by someone who embodies that mission in every way. Dr. Peter Salerno, the author and editor behind livingwellafter65.com. Dr. Salerno is 92 years old, a retired clinical therapist, and an ordained Presbyterian minister. After completing his training at the Menninger Foundation's Division of Religion and Psychiatry, he went on to found the Old Louisville Counseling Center, where he served as clinical director and principal therapist for many years. He is writing a book on the topic of living well after 65, and you can read excerpts from it as it progresses at his website. In today's conversation, host Joseph Grove will talk with Dr. Salerno about the changes he's seen in society and among the aging that motivated him to begin this project.
Dr. Salerno, thanks for talking to me, and I'm really looking forward to not only this conversation, but the others that will follow as we move through your book.
Okay. And it's good to be here, and thank you for having me, Joe. I appreciate it.
Well, sure thing, sir. So Dr. Salerno and I have been working on various chapters of the book. We're putting some excerpts up on his website. The topic is getting the most of life after age 65. And Dr. Salerno, what got you thinking about the need for this book?
Well, I think the first thing was my own process of aging, okay? And I began to realize that there is an enormous number of changes taking place in our society as that relates to the issue of aging. By that, what I mean is, for an example, it used to be that age 65 was called peak 65, and you would retire at that time. And then it wouldn't take very long after that, several years after that, you'd find a lot of people, winding up in a world where they felt like they were doing nothing. They felt like their days, as far as being productive, were over and finished. And after that, I thought was just kind of fascinating, the number of people who would wind up just simply letting themselves go and winding up in a graveyard very, very early on. So by the time you were 70 or 75, a lot of us simply didn't feel like we had much to do after that. Now, I think the important thing is that we've reached a point where we now realize that age 65 is just another stage of life moving forward into a better world. And we're beginning to realize that there are many important stages after 65. Now, I'll give you a personal example. In 98, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Now, I was very, very fortunate in the sense that they had a little test called a PSA. And that little PSA test, a specific antigen test, gave me, because they had that test, I was able to diagnose my cancer early on, and it gave me 25 years more of life, whereas men who came before me no longer than 5 years before me, they didn't have that test, and sadly, all of them are gone. They died. They didn't make it. So what happens, what we're talking about a marvelous medical advancement where people are getting to live much, much longer. Age 65 is just a staging point for the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and I'm guessing now the hundreds easily. I think that a lot of people are going to make it at 100. And then the question becomes one of, okay, I retire at 65. Now I've got maybe 20, 25 more years left of my life. What am I going to do with that?
Right. When we first started talking, I suggested, calling the project the third, and we decided against that for other reasons. But in a way, that's kind of how I see it, right? Because you have
right.
your first period of life where you're going into your career, you have your career, and until recently, those were the bookends. You start your education and you retire, and that's it. But we have, through the benefits of the medicine you just described, and for many other reasons, better nutrition, safer environments, many reasons, we are having a new chapter. Well, it's more than a chapter. It's almost a huge set of chapters after the age
Exactly.
of 65.
Exactly.
Now, you titled the introduction to your book, and it's the first blog on the website, livingwellafter65.com. You title it Blowing Through the Stop Sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Why
Right.
do you refer to it that way?
Because I think people who are moving through that stage of life need a whole new orientation. And they need to understand that there's a lot of life to live beyond 65, and that there's a lot of there are many, many resources available to them, and there's a lot of energy available to them. I really want to create an image in the mind of our minds as we get older, that there's a lot of life in us, and we need to really be willing to step forward, take the initiative, seize the moment, recognize that we have a lot to offer, and it's going to take some skills to do that.
Those various skills will comprise the chapters we go forward, but I interrupted you. Please go ahead.
No, I was going to say, for example, according to the statistics out of the Department of Labor, 11,000 baby boomers are retiring every day for the next 4 or 5 years. To just give you some idea of the numbers of people that we're talking about, okay? And we're talking about a group of people financially, for example. I think the figure that I saw and the figures that seem to be accurate is something like 70% of the wealth of the country is located in the older generation, which I think is phenomenal. So we have financial resources available in that older generation that are coming into their own. We have a lifespan of people coming into that dimension of life. We have a lot of people coming into that world. And the question is, what are the skills that they need to have in order to be able to make the transition?
And it seems to me, too, that, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but having a purpose for your life can actually extend the amount of life you have to fulfill that purpose. Is there a codependency or an interdependency there?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that is absolutely essential. And I think that's one of the really important issues for people who are transitioning from their 60s into their 70s. For the first half of life, without a doubt, okay, we think that we're sitting at a grand piano creating these beautiful, beautiful tunes, when in fact it's a player piano. All the holes have been cut out for us. You go to school, you get an education, you get married, you have children, you get a job, you move at a certain pace up through the ranks in your job. You are supposed to be able to reach this goal by a certain age and that goal by a certain age, so that by the time you're in your 60s, so much of that have been completed. Then, and all of that, so most of us don't even have to think about that. Most of us just unconsciously fall into that pattern and unconsciously move through those steps. Then, okay, we're talking about a whole new dimension of life, when in fact, we're no longer sitting at a player piano where the holes have been cut out for us, where we have to start figuring out, what is my purpose? What is my goal? What do I really want to do for myself? I've put in all these years. I've proved myself. I've worked hard. Here I am. Now, what's the next stage for me? And the important thing there, Joe, is that we're looking at a salient period of transition. A salient period of transition. By that I mean, when you go through those periods, these kinds of periods of transition, it's a whole redefining, and here's the key, it's a redefinition of who we are. It's a redefinition of our purpose, or it's a redefinition of our goals, okay? And we need to be able to sit down and take the time to figure that out. What is it now? I'm going to have 20 years ahead of me. I'm lucky. My doc calls me and says, Peter, you got cancer. And then I find out that I'm able to have the operation. The operation is successful. I wind up with 25 more years of life. And many, many others are finding the same thing. They go to their doctor with a scary diagnosis, The doc says, okay, but we have protocols for this and we can deal with that. And the next thing you know, they're looking at many, many more years ahead of them.
As you're talking about all of that, I'm thinking of my grandfather who raised me. He lived to be, I think, 90, 91 years old. And it struck me that after his retirement, that perhaps key to his longevity was that he maintained an active interest in reading. He had me. I was about 12, 13 years old when his wife, my grandmother, died, and he had me on his own. He took correspondence courses. He continued to build things and do projects for friends. That may very well, apropos of what you're saying, helped carry him along even further.
Absolutely, I think that's right. I think that's exactly correct. Let's look at a real divider. Okay, COVID-19 comes out of nowhere, shuts the globe down in about 4 weeks. Unheard of. Never before in the history of this planet has anything like that ever happened. And when that happens, okay, it's completely sudden. People don't know what to do. People have to be able to handle that, to get to the other side of that. And what we're talking about is how quickly now our world changes. And here's the key. It's not going to slow down. It is not going to get any easier. It's going to become more complicated. And I'm thinking that people who are older and who have had a lot of life experiences, okay, with good skills, offer us a foundation, offer us a resource in order to be able to deal with the kind of world I'm describing. Again, let me share that very clearly. None of this is going to slow down. It's even going to speed up faster. I mean, every day you watch this TV and they've got breaking news every 5 minutes, okay? Because something new is breaking loose in this world.
Well, you and I have had some great conversations, for example, about artificial intelligence, which is an accelerated introduction of a new tool that even younger people, I think, are struggling in some ways to keep up with it. It must be particularly daunting for folks who, within their lifetime, have seen, not to, I guess, focus on your being 92, but just think of the changes that have happened technologically within your life, and now to add something like artificial intelligence on that, it's got to be head swimming.
Mm-hmm. And I'll give you a personal example of that. My son Alex, okay, is a producer in New York. Right? He told me that 6 months ago, AI came out with a production series. And he said, it was pretty good. Okay, that was 6 months ago. He told me last week he saw another production series by AI, which was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And he's talking to me and he's saying, that's going to put us out of work. That's going to put guys like me out of work overnight.
It's like the old blacksmith who, faces being put out of work by the car. Well, he can't become a better blacksmith and stay in business. He's got to learn how to change tires or work on motors. And that's
right.
Your son and even me working in the communication space need to be aware of. The AI can do what we do now. We have to learn how to get AI to do what it does even better for a better final product. And we'll have a whole conversation about technology and AI, but I think it is a great example of what you talk about when you refer to the head snapping pace at which things are accelerating, and the difficulty perhaps people who are retiring or have retired have with keeping up with it.
And I hope that I'm just not rambling all over the place with this, Joe. Okay, but one of the reasons why I'm writing this book is because one of the things that us older seniors must keep in mind. I beg them, I get on my knees and beg them, okay, do not go into the past. Whatever you do, okay, do not look back. Glimpse, do not stare. Because when you've got 50 years behind you, or 60 years behind you, you got 90 years behind you, like myself, if you stare, what happens is you get pulled right into it, and the next thing you know, you're going to feel terribly depressed. If you want to stay out of depression, if you want to stay out of clinical depression, the thing to do is make sure you're grounded in the moment and you're looking forward.
Bob Russell, a pastor famous nationally, but certainly in our hometown of Louisville, Kentucky, told a great illustration
Right.
of how when he was a young boy, he would be, and I'm such a city boy, I'm going to probably say this wrong, but he would drive a tractor and I guess a hay baler, let's say, and if he kept his eyes going forward, at the end of his work, all of the lines up and down the field would be straight. But if he looked back,
Absolutely.
he would get
Right.
off
There's always a
course.
crook in it.
That's right.
There's
And
always a
that
crook
to
in
me
it.
has stuck with me for probably 40 years now since I first heard him tell that story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing that's really important is here's the tricky part. Okay, so those of us who are over 50, we have we've had a lot of good experiences, and we've got a lot of good talents in various areas of life. So we want to be able to use those because a lot of times we literally forget how well some of these things have served us. Okay, so we want to be able to go back and use them, but we don't want to ever get stuck in the past. Okay, so it's about context. How can I tap into some of the things I've done and done really well, pull them into the present and move them into the future. But the main focus has got to be on today and the future, and make sure I don't get caught up in the past. Because if I get caught up in the past, I'm going to have all kinds of miseries. I'm going to feel like I could have done better. I should have done this, or I should have done that. And of course, there's no way in the world to be able to go back and repair those things. Those things are gone. They're over. So let's look forward. And I think that, and the key there is from here on out, as you and I do some of these future podcasts, what are the skills that I need? What are the skills that I need to be able to make this transition?
But I was going to touch on the first chapter in your book, which talks about the great exodus in medicine.
Yeah.
Now, none of the strategies that we'll be talking about in upcoming episodes mean that much if our health is not maintained. And again, I refer to your prostate specific antigen test.
Mm-hmm.
What are you seeing happening in the medical field that seniors, I'll use that term, need to be aware of to make sure that they have the health to enjoy the strategies and their payoffs?
Okay, that's a great question. First of all, one of the things I would encourage every senior to do when he goes in or she goes in to meet with their doctor, okay, or their physician or their healthcare provider, ask, because I've done this. I've been interviewing my healthcare providers, asking them, how do they feel about what's happening to them in the work that they're doing, the professionals, okay? And they're pretty much telling me the same thing. They're worn out. They're having a really, really tough time being able to give patients the kind of care they want to give them. They're on schedules. They've got to meet certain criteria as it is set for them by the administrators, okay? They don't have time for themselves. In fact, one of the things that happened with COVID-19, a lot of them got a chance to actually work at home. And the result was they loved it. They forgot how much they enjoyed being with their family. So one of the things we're seeing in the healthcare industry is an enormous, and let's ask seniors to interview their healthcare providers and to just get some sense of what's going on with these healthcare providers, because a lot of them that I'm talking to have decided to get out of the business. They went out.
I certainly see that. And anecdotally, I accompanied a friend of mine to her general practitioner, a visit she had with him. And my friend's daughter is in medical school. The doctor advised my friend to counsel my friend's daughter, whatever you do, don't become a general practitioner, because their life is such a treadmill where they have patients, during the day, and then they have to go home and chart. My chart, I think, is the one, maybe it's national, but it's certainly the one used commonly here in Louisville. They have to go home and make notes, and they have to correspond with after hours questions from their patients. And he just described it as a real grind. How dispiriting it was to hear that. So no wonder they're retiring, right? So the seniors, they may struggle to even find someone who has appointments available, is going to be around a long time. So that presents a real challenge. Do you have any advice for them?
All right. So one of my interesting questions to my patients is this. Okay, it's kind of like a setup almost question, right? So I'll say to them, where do you live? And they'll give me an address, 35 Park Avenue, or whatever they can. No, I say, you live in that body. You live in that body. So where we have to start first of all, with you taking care of your body. Now, point number one, we have found, and you can look it up, okay, that exercise, any kind of exercise, is as valuable as any kind of antidepressant medication. If you walk around the block, start walking around the block, start getting a little exercise, you're going to diminish depression in your life. Believe it or not, that's a fact, okay? So one of the things that's really important is for every one of us to do something in the way of getting exercise. Whether you take a walk, whether you hike at Bernheim, whether you do the loop at Cherokee Park, around Cherokee Park, or whether you, for years I sculled, I rode down on the Ohio, and now I swim. I swim at least twice a week. Okay, whatever you do, get some exercise. Number two, we have to establish cordial, caring relationships with our healthcare providers. If you got a doc, take some time to talk with them, establish that relationship, so that if you get into a jam, you've got somebody you can call. You've got to look at these folks as these are people who have resources that I need, and I want to make sure that I have a relationship with them that's solid, that's good, that's close enough that I can call them in an emergency. So I think that these are the kinds of steps that we need to take. I think that those of us who are fortunate enough to have enough money to get into some of these boutique medicine situations, okay, if you've got enough money for that, get into one, because what they can do for you is give you immediate responses, okay? Well, you can't.
You're talking about like a concierge medical service, or
concierge, concierge
something like that, right? I was just reading about that. The other day. I mean, I don't think many of them take insurance, so you might have to pay the standard rate.
You have to pay
right.
You have to pay $2,000 or
something like that. But yeah, they're available right away, right? So that's certainly not for everyone, but if it is a potential, then one should avail him or herself of it.
And then the other thing that I'm thinking is, I was one who participated in the march here this past weekend. All right, I've done marches. I can't remember. I go as far back as I marched with Martin Luther King, just to give you an idea. Okay, but what we're talking about there is somehow expressing the importance of keeping a net under a lot of people in the way of Social Security, or some kind of health care that is affordable, that they can access. That becomes in a lot of ways, that's a political issue now. But I think that whatever we can do in that arena to support that concept, I think we need to do. Whatever we can do to support people getting better health, or support people having a net under them, so that if they run into a really difficult situation, they can get some kind of health care. So I think maybe there are 3 or 4, maybe 5 things that we can do along that line that come to my mind anyway. What do you think? Do you have any ideas about that?
Well, I agree with you. Here's my question though. I'm 61. I'm overweight. I'm sedentary. I'm probably not set up. Yeah, I mean, seriously. I mean, one of these days you'll see me, and my wife will have just wheeled my desk chair with me in it over to see you. So I guess I have kind of an intrinsic pessimism. Like, golly, I'm not going to live to be Dr. Salerno's age. That's another 30 years for me, which is almost unfathomable. In short, is it too late for someone like me to start on this kind of thinking, on this kind of journey?
No, not at all. No, not at all. And that's one of the things that I think that is really, really important, okay, is that in that sense, once we're in our grave, it's too late. Once you're in the grave, it's too late, okay? But the reality is that we human beings, okay, have more resources and abilities than we give ourselves credit for. We just shortchange ourselves all the time. No, it's never too late to start. It's always good to start, because by starting, okay, and part of what I'm saying is that a lot of people who are just coming into retirement are going to have to start over. They're going to have to start fresh. They're going to have to learn how to do these things. So, I took music up. I took the mandolin up when I was in my late 70s. Okay, I'm now playing the guitar. I switched over on it because I want to keep my mind going. It's never too late. It's never too late to you've got a beautiful spouse. It's never too late for the two of you to take a walk around the Cherokee Loop. Okay, it's just never too late for any of that.
Just to get going, everything is hard
that
at first
step,
until it's easy.
Yeah.
I liken it kind of to like turning a boat around. I mean, it takes a lot of energy. It creates a lot of wake to turn that ship around. But once you're pointed in a new, and in this case, new, better direction, well, then it's a lot easier. It's just hard for a little while. We've gone about a half hour, Dr. Salerno. I think that's a good length for our podcast listeners, and I know we'll have many more conversations going forward. But as we wrap up kind of a look at the introduction to your thinking behind the book, let me ask you if you have any final thoughts for this show.
I think what I would emphasize is in this first hour is, okay, number one, most of us now, I'm the tip of the spear, okay? Because I think now what you're going to find more and more is large numbers of people retiring, okay? And the issue there is they're facing a period of transition. Remember, whenever we go through major periods of transition, we're looking at redefining who we are. It's going to take some time to do that. There are now resources being made available for people to utilize, to take a look at, to study, to examine, to see what it is the kinds of skills that they need to have for this transitionary period. Please don't look back. Look, you may have some resources back there that you can pull forward, and there are ways to be able to do that, and we can talk about that. But for the most part, glimpse, whatever you do, don't stare, because if you stare, you're going to feel depressed. You'll start thinking, oh my God, I should have done that. I should have accomplished this. No. Now we're looking forward. We're going to have a lot of years ahead of you. So let's stay out of the past. Let's develop the skills that you need in order, the psychological skills, the social skills, the spiritual skills that you need in order to be able to move forward. Okay. And I think we're talking about a new hopeful day ahead for all of us.
Thanks for listening to Living Well After 65 with Dr. Peter Salerno and Joseph Grove. In upcoming episodes, Dr. Salerno will continue to guide us through the emotional, spiritual, and practical sides of aging, exploring everything from finding purpose after retirement to navigating grief, relationships, and the search for meaning in later life. If you're enjoying these conversations, visit livingwellafter65.com and be sure to follow or subscribe to this podcast so you won't miss a single episode. Until next time, take care and keep living well.